Alright guys, welcome back. We have Monday and this means we have some new leaks and we have them. There were these atomic leaks. Dkayed basically teased them with saying this will be a meta-changing leak that he has for us on this Sunday, so the last Sunday, and they were actually meta-changing but in a different way than I thought actually, because I was expecting the Fiendsmith stuff to be announced, and honestly I still think that we will get the Fiendsmith stuff, since for the next pack in January we as of right now only have announced the Ancient archetype, and Fiendsmith is one of the last archetypes that we need to get from Infinite Forbidden, the set that we are currently on. But this was not the nuclear leak that we have gotten. Could have been something else, could have been Ryziel early or Melis early, but we have something else here, very interesting, that has been leaked that we will get, and we will get the Mulcharmies, the Mulcharmy basically. And this is actually super interesting, and this is definitely a video topic that you can go way more in depth on, which I am planning on doing. You can also let me know in the comments whether this would be interesting for you. This is only now the leaks, and in the next few days I want to make a video that is a bit longer, talking about the impact of these cards. Obviously we will go over them in a second here, especially the ones we are getting, talk about them, but I want to make a more in-depth video talking about whether this is very impactful for Master Duel or whether this might be a bit overblown. So firstly we have the Mulcharmy Purulia that we are getting. This is from the set that we are currently on, Infinite Forbidden, so not the biggest surprise here. Mulcharmy Purulia, level 4, Aqua effect. So these are the new maxis basically, they have been called. If you don't know what they are doing, if you control no cards, quick effect, you can discard this card, apply these effects this turn. This is the most important clause in my opinion. This is what makes these cards so much better than maxi is. If you control no cards, which means that you can't build your board on turn 1 and then turn 2 your opponent throw a Purulia or Mulcharmy or a Nihilus at them. This will not work. This only works if you're going second, which is just way better because it's way fairer, right? And then each time your opponent normal or special summons a monster from the hand, you can immediately draw one card. And then this has this additional security effect, you could say. But we have seen now, since this card has been around for a while now in the TCG and the OCG, that this security clause, which is still nice that this card has this security clause, never ever comes up. But it says once during the end phase, if the number of cards in your hand is more than the number of cards your opponent controls plus 6, you must randomly shuffle cards from your hand into the deck, so the number in your hand equals the number your opponent controls plus 6. So if your opponent passes on 5 cards and you have more than 11 cards in the hand, then you would need to shuffle back cards, but this never ever happens. It also doesn't make a lot of sense, since if your opponent has, for example, 5 cards and then probably 2 of them are spells and traps, and then 3 of them might be a monster, 2 of them might be special summoned from the hand or normal summoned from the hand, so you might have drawn 2 cards. You never ever come to this plus 6 points. So this is not really relevant, but this definitely is like a security mechanism so that this card isn't too broken, because all of us have probably played games in which Maxi has basically drawn us the entire deck. I think this is also cool because now you can't like draw or deck out your opponent when they activate Maxi on you, which works. Obviously there was a time back when we got the Ishizu cards where people could just mill the entire deck when being Maxi'd, because they could special summon that many monsters. This will not work with the Mulcharmy Purulia, but the important thing to note here is that this only works from hand, so only monsters from hand. This also counts for the normal summon. Maxi would only be the special summon, so Mulcharmy Purulia is definitely a card that if you play it, you want to play it in the draw phase, since in the main phase they can just do the normal summon, and the normal summon might be the only card that you are drawing with the Mulcharmy Purulia if they then pass on you. But we are not only getting the Mulcharmy Purulia, which is not the biggest of leaks and also not the most impactful one here, but we were also getting the new Maxi, the real new Maxi as they call them, the Mulcharmy Fuvalos. It's a winged beast, level 4. If you control no cards, quick effect, you can discard this card, apply these effects this turn. It's so important that this is here, the clause is here. Each time your opponent special summons a monster from the deck and or extra deck, draw one card. So this one does the hand, this one does deck or extra deck, and we are drawing one card. This obviously happens way more often, and you don't have to drop this in the draw phase, since the normal summon will not draw you any card, and then you once again have this safety clause here in the end, which can definitely come up way more often on the Fuvalos. It actually never does, but it could come up more likely on the Fuvalos than over here on the Purulia. The Fuvalos, the new Maxi, since you will draw way more cards, this is way more likely to just make your opponent pass play, and this is really impactful, right? This really changes up the idea of Master Duel, especially since we have a best of one. But as I already said, I want to go into more depth into this topic in another video, since there's a lot of stuff that we have to talk about, a lot of stuff to evaluate when asking the question, are the Mulcharmies actually good? Or are they not that relevant in Master Duel? But we get them both, probably. They will be ultra rares, I would assume. And in the other video, I will also answer the question whether I think that you will need basically 6 of them, Mulcharmy Purulia ×3 and then Mulcharmy Fuvolos ×3. Then in the future, you might already have noticed, if you're not aware, this is from hand, this is from extra deck and deck. And obviously there's one more place missing where you could also special summon or summon monsters from, which would be banished and the graveyard. And in the next set that will come out, the Supreme Darkness set that will be out in the TCG in January. There is the last one of the Mulcharmies, probably the last one, the Mulcharmy Nihilus. If you control no cards, once again, each time your opponent special summons a monster from the graveyard and or banishment, immediately draw 1 card. So now we have a Mulcharmy for every basically place that you can summon from. Obviously, the Fuvolos is the best one, since it not only has 2 places like the Nihilus, but unlike the Purulia, but these are also the most important ones, being the deck and the extra deck right here. And it's also important that these are level 4s. This can actually come up because you can, for example, play them in the new, you can obviously play them in a lot of decks, but you can also play them in, for example, Ryziel here, where they are reliant on having level 4 bodies that they can make their XYZ plays with. So yeah, for the next update for the January pack, we will get Mulcharmy Purulia as well as Mulcharmy Fuvolos, both probably being ultra rares if I would need to guess. And then obviously the question is, will we also get the Fiendsmith stuff? There is the Ashen stuff already announced for the January pack, but this is the only archetype that we will get. It needs to be said that this actually is a quite big archetype, as you can see right here. This is one of the biggest if we get everything, and I think we will get everything. These are 14 cards, that are actually a lot, and the Fiendsmith cards, if we look at them, are also not that, so there's a big pool of Fiendsmith cards basically. We will, if we get Fiendsmith, probably not get these 2 here, but then these 10 here, and so there is actually a possibility that we won't get the Fiendsmith cards here, since the Ashen cards take up a lot of space in this pack. I hope that we get the Fiendsmith stuff, just because then it would be really worth it to pull from this pack, especially because we are also getting the 2 Mulcharmies, and we might also, I don't know, I don't really think so. This is the next big one that we could get, the Dominus Impulse, which came in the same pack as the Fuvolos. So we might see this. This is a very important staple of the future, basically. And spoiler alert, I think this is one of the most likely ones to be in all of the decks when we look at these 3 here, minus the Fuvolos, maybe the Dominus Impulse. If your opponent controls a card, you can activate this card from hand. Very nice. When a card or effect is activated that includes an effect that special summons a monster, like Original Sinful Spoils or Branded Fusion, negate that effect, and if you have a trap in your graveyard, destroy that card. But if you activated this card from your hand, you cannot activate the effects of Light, Earth, and Wind monsters for the rest of this duel. For example, the Fuvolos, so you can't play this in any deck. But the cool thing is, in comparison to an Imperm, for example, is that you can play your first turn and then still keep this thing in your hand, since you can also activate this in the hand on your opponent's turn if you control the card. So you don't need to set it like you would need to set an Imperm, so it can't be interacted with a Dust or with a Lightning Storm. So we could also see the Dominus Impulse coming, since this is one of the next big staples, together with the Purulias, and it's in the same pack as with Fuvolos was in. I don't really think so. I think we are getting the Fuvoloses and that's it. Would be so crazy if we also get the other Fuvolos, the Mulcharmy Nihilus, but we will talk about this quite quickly, though, in the video going into more depth on the Fuvoloses here. But yeah, this is the leak. Let me know in the comments what you think. I'm very excited for this, since this could also mean, and Dkayed also mentioned this, that we will see something happening to Maxx C on the ban list that will probably drop at the end of the month, somewhere there. So we could see Maxx C like in the OCG going to 2. It would be crazy, crazy, crazy if we would see the Maxx C being forbidden. I hope this happens, since I don't think that Maxx C is a very cool card. And this would obviously change some things up concerning how many copies of these you would play, but we will talk about this in more depth in the Mulcharmy dedicated video. Let me know in the comments what you think. Are you hyped for this? Are you not really hyped for this? And we will talk about what this means in the video coming up in the next days. Thanks for being here, and we will see each other in the next one.